Vietnam, haven't even heard of Vietnam.
Yeah, we were just kids. Kids with guns.
Vietnam was about a generation of Americans who truly lost their innocence.
From the gung-ho to the what the hell we're doing here to let's get the heck out.
Actually, some people, when they come back, were ashamed that they'd been there, unfortunately. I wasn't. I looked for opportunities to tell it what it was really about and to tell about my brothers.
I made it. So many didn't.
Their country asked them to serve, and they answered the call. But when the men and women of Utah went to fight in Southeast Asia, they had no idea that the Vietnam War would be part of them for the rest of their lives. The world remembers the Vietnam War with mixed feelings. Some regard it as a necessary step in confronting communism. Others feel it was an enormous mistake. The war started in controversy, was fought in controversy, and ended in controversy. Too often, those clouds have obscured the service and sacrifice of millions of Americans during the Vietnam conflict. Almost 60,000 gave their lives, including nearly 400 from Utah. Those who served came from every corner of American society and from every big city and most small towns in our state. They served as chopper pilots who placed their lives on the line to save others, foot soldiers and tunnel rats, pilots, swiftboat sailors, and medics. They served and they died in distant locations that became familiar names in the 1960s. The Central Highlands, Da Nang, the Mekong Delta. Many more came home with physical wounds, and countless others came home with mental scars that would haunt them decades after their service. There were few welcome home parades as a nation argued over the war and often ignored the warrior. It is time to remember those who served, to hear their voices, and embrace their sacrifice. I'm Rick Randall. KUED is proud to present Utahns Serving in Vietnam, the first of a three-part series told by those who were there.
I was very much in support of the war. I was very much in support of my government. I was raised to believe that if my government asked me to do something, right or wrong, it's my government. Thankfully, I've grown up.
There was little odds and ends in the paper, but back then you were just kids and you didn't really pay much attention to that. Other than that, when the draft came around, you started paying attention to it. You had to go register for the draft.
We, in our area, knew that we were going to get drafted. We went right into high school knowing that the senior classes were all going to war. So we went through high school knowing that when you graduate, you're gone.
And I grew up right after Korea in World War II, and so you still had a lot of those movies, to some extent, that kind of romanticized war.
It was on Huntley and Brinkley News every night, and we'd watch that, and there they were showing all of that film, and it upset my dad. He was a World War II vet in New Guinea, and he reacted very negatively. We have no business over there, and so on and so forth. That was kind of a reaction throughout our family.
I mean, I cared a lot about the Vietnam War. I did a lot of reading about the Vietnam War, and I thought that it was a huge mistake in American foreign policy, and that it was just a big wealth transfer from the middle class to the richest 2%.
When you're young, you want to be part of what's popular. So being against the war was popular. Supporting the war wasn't.
When it came my turn, I just went ahead and said, okay, I'll do it, not thinking anything about the political aspect of should we be there or should we not be there. It was a call to duty, and I just went and served.
But we knew what was going to happen, and we just kept thinking we were going to be activated, and we never did, so that's why I volunteered to go. I spent 20 years training to do it. Why not go? 'Cause I knew it was a mission we needed to perform.
It was just exactly what I thought it was going to be. I'd been flying practice missions, if you will, for 10 years, 12 years, and so I was ready to go.
When I was at the University of Utah and was young and foolish, I understood that everybody had to go. That turned out not to be true, but everybody had to go. So I thought it was recommended that we become ROTC cadets, and then we could go as officers, which is what I did.
I love my country. I don't know always agree with what it does, with what the people who lead it do, but I love my country. And I would die defending it. I very firmly believe that.
Men remembered and paused in tribute as Sir Winston Churchill went to his rest. Generations alive today will never see his like again. President Johnson signed the Medicare bill at the Truman Library in Missouri. The draft call was increased. Our forces in Vietnam reached more than 175,000.
Then I got on a big plane, and it was commercial, as opposed to my husband, and we flew to Vietnam. I was the only woman on the plane.
It was a 14-hour flight from Travis Air Force Base to Tan Son Nhut, which was in Saigon.
The trip from Edwards Air Force Base to Tokyo was pretty fun. We partied up pretty good, and they let us. Nobody cared whether you were 21 or not. The whole plane load was going to Vietnam, so we had quite a bit of fun on that leg of the trip. We stopped in Tokyo, and we were there for, a few hours. And then we got back on the same plane with a different flight crew. And I remember going up to step and going to the stewardess and saying, that's kind of like the life of the party on the last leg. And she says, yeah, we won't be doing any of that now. So and then we took off for Vietnam, and you could hear a pin drop in the plane as we were headed to Da Nang.
But there was no conversation. People were not moving around a lot. We were all terrified.
We flew from here to Hawaii, refueled from Hawaii, crash landed in the Philippines. Then they took and flew us out of there, and out over the ocean we ran into a typhoon and was close to the international date line, and the pilot came on. He told us, he says, we do not have enough fuel to go back. We do not have enough fuel to go around. We are going to go through.
As the ramp went down with our sea bags on it, there was a guy, I thought he was an idiot. You can't hear a thing. And he was running behind the plane yelling something and pointing. And we landed in the middle of a rocket attack at Da Nang. The rockets started coming in as we landed. So everybody was just grabbing a sea bag and running for shelter.
Of course, every time you got there, the crew that was already there, the main effort was to try and scare the hell out of you. So they came roaring up in their van with M16s and submachine guns sticking out of every crevice. Get in, hurry. We're all going, oh, God,
All I remember is that when you walked to the door of that aircraft, there was this people refer to it as this wall of heat and humidity. And I didn't find out until many years later that the smell that went with it was not normal. The smell that came with that heat and humidity was pesticides, herbicides, jet fuel, well, maybe one or two other things. But I didn't know that. I just thought, well, this is the way Vietnam smells.
I was blown away. I mean, the smell, and it was just, I wondered what the heck I got myself in for. The heat was unbearable, and, you know, you're instantly soaking wet from the sweat, and don't know what's going on, and don't know what, you know, anything. They put us on a bus, and they had screens on all the windows, and I'm going, this is not a good thing, you know. And we're driving down the road, and women are squatting and going to the bathroom off the bridges into the river, and I'm just going, wow. I mean, I was just totally overwhelmed.
I asked somebody, I said, well, what's the bars for? And they says, well, we got to drive downtown to get back to the other part of the base. And that's to keep people from throwing hand grenades in the window. And I thought, oops, this is not good, you know? And so it just kind of went from there.
So that was our introduction to Vietnam. and from that point on, it became, as somebody once put it, days of abject boredom, punctuated by seconds of stark terror.
The foot soldier in Vietnam endured grueling patrol missions, day and night. They often were called to sweep villages that could harbor Viet Cong guerrillas. That could mean hours of demanding hikes through rice paddies and jungle paths, knowing that any step may be their last.
They told us to expect, you know, heavy resistance, and so they helicoptered our whole company with 200 guys. I remember, you know, setting down in a rice paddy and jumping out. You jump out in them rice paddies, you sink clear up to your thighs, your waist, it's just mud. And there you are in the middle of a rice paddy, you know, bare open and bare ground, just waiting to get fired upon, and you're scrambling, trying to reach some cover. We're sweeping along, we're walking along a rice paddy trail. We haven't received any fire yet. We've been walking for 30, 40 minutes, and very slow sweeping through the village, so the left flank and the right flank had to kind of wait for the interior two squads to sweep through the village because they're searching everything. So we took about a 10-minute break and sat down. They told us to grab a can of C rations and wolf it down real quick because we probably wouldn't get much more food. So I broke open my 1941 C ration box. They had sent us C rations from the Second World War. So I shared my beefsteak, potatoes, and gravy with a buddy of mine who was sitting next to me on the rice paddy. He was my ammo carrier. He was carrying ammo and his rifle. And we got up, and as soon as we got up, we got hit with incoming fire. And it was very extremely heavy. You can hear bullets flying by, and the dirt was kicking up all around us where they had missed. And I heard screaming from inside the village. We had some guys getting hit. And there was a hedgerow about 50 yards in front of us, a very thick hedgerow. There's a lot of those in Vietnam. So the fire was coming from that hedgerow, but you couldn't see anyone. So we all hit the dirt and then tried to find some cover. So we hit the ground, and the firing was, you know, really intense, very loud. And it probably went on for 2 to 3 minutes.